Author's House.
Today is November 9th, 2021. My name is Nicole Richardson, and I'm from Author's Press. I'm gathered here today with Robert Keighton, the author of A Political Diary. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Robert?
Well, I was a teacher. I've been a teacher for probably something like 60 years, and I went to Swarthmore College for my undergraduate, got my doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania, and I've been teaching at 3 or 4 different schools ever since. And my field is political science, politics, basically.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book as well?
Yes, my book really deals with two things. I'm a political activist, and I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of very interesting people, presidents of the United States, presidential candidates, senators, governors, and on down the line. And so I had personal encounters with a lot of these people and have insights that probably would be surprising to a lot of people. In addition to that, the book also details many of the activities I've been involved in that involve politics, engaged in boycotts and things like that. So I think the reader would find it very challenging and interesting to see the various aspects that I encountered in different schools and different environments.
Okay. What is the main message you want to get across to your readers?
My main message would be that people should really get into political action because they will find it very rewarding, in addition to being important in terms of trying to influence government policies. I think also you would find a lot of experiences that you would otherwise not have. And I get into some things thinking nothing's going to happen, and suddenly I find I'm meeting very interesting people. A good example would be I got in trying to save a very historic farm, and one of the people that happened to be involved was the then star of the Celtics basketball game, Dave Cowens. I had no idea I would meet him, but he invited me over to his house for dinner. We had a relationship that went on during this whole period, and we co-authored a book along with Harvey Robbins, the principal leader of that effort to save the farm. So we really, you get involved in these things and you don't know what's going to happen. And as I tell my students, get involved in something. Maybe you'll be surprised. Maybe somebody like Tom Brady will invite you over for dinner. You don't know. So get involved in these things because it leads to a lot of surprising things.
Okay. What is your biggest source of inspiration?
My biggest source of inspiration is probably my students. I love to teach, and that's where I find a lot of inspiration because they give me really good feedback. And after they graduate, they come back and they take me out to dinner, and we chat and talk about various things. I would say that's a very inspiring thing. But it's also inspiring to just be involved because you meet these people that you never expected, and that inspires you as well. And when you see tangible results and that you find that you can do things which accomplish something, that's very inspiring as well.
Yeah, I can completely understand how that would be inspiring. If you don't mind me asking, did you teach high school?
No, I taught, I actually did teach 1 year many years ago before I had my doctorate, but all my teaching since my doctorate has been on the college level. And I teach a variety of courses. I teach a course called, for example, Politics of Deception, about lies in government. I started that with Watergate and the Nixon administration, and I thought to myself, when Nixon resigns, what am I going to talk about? I didn't have to worry because deception comes along all the time. So that was an example of the course that I developed that turned out to be, very interesting, I think.
What does literary success look like to you?
Literary success is just that people would find what I write interesting and maybe motivate them into going into some political campaign or political issue. I've been involved in so many different issues, environmental, things like that. So I think anytime you can get involved in an issue, even if it's not directly in your line of sight, it might be something a little bit off your normal course of action, you will find this very, very satisfying.
Okay. Now, you don't have to answer this question. I've noticed this question tends to make mostly women uncomfortable. How old were you when you wrote your first book or story?
My first book was a book, introductory textbook in American government. That was One Nation, and I was about 40 years old when I wrote that.
Okay.
I've done other books. The first one with stories was an autobiography, which I'm currently revising, and that came out a couple years ago. And then this one, which was about a year ago, I did this.
Okay, so that kind of leads me to my next question, which I feel like you kind of answered a little bit of. As a child, did you know you wanted to be a reader? Or a writer, excuse me, not a reader.
Well, I was very interested in many things. I studied piano. I was very interested in music, but I was very interested in politics also at that age. But I didn't know I was going to be a teacher. In fact, in high school, I never would have thought about being a teacher. I thought I wasn't really cut out for it, but I got what should I say? It dawned on me I could be a teacher, and once I got into it, I just loved it. So I carried that along. And then I've developed other hobbies. For example, this is very late in life. When I was about 50 years old, I suddenly decided to take painting classes. And now I have my own art studio. I do a lot of painting, mostly landscapes and oils. And so that's very satisfying. And I've composed a lot of music, mostly vocal and piano music. So I have other interests than just politics, but that seems to be, something professionally, that's my dominant interest.
Okay. Is your book a standalone, or is it going to be a part of the series?
It's a standalone.
Okay.
If I have some more interesting experiences, I might write a sequel, but that'll take a little time.
Right, because you mentioned a little bit that this has a little bit of your personal experiences, right?
Oh, yes. So if I have any more, I could, maybe if I have enough of them to make a book, I'd come out with another book, sure.
Okay. What was the hardest part of writing this book?
Well, the hardest part is really just sitting down to do it and being determined to do it. I told you I'm working on this other book, a revision of my autobiography, and it's very hard just to force yourself to sit down and say, do it. And then once you get it done, you take a look and say, I've got to make changes here, changes there. So it's a very slow, methodical process. Hardest than all.
Yeah, and on the other hand, what was the easiest part of writing this book, or your favorite part? What was your favorite part?
Oh, my favorite part was probably telling some of the stories where I had interesting experiences, encounters with various people, surprising, interviews. That's probably the most rewarding part.
Okay. I just have a couple more questions for you before we wrap this up. Who is your target audience?
I would say my target audience is anybody who is old enough to want to get involved in politics. And I know young people who are 15, 16 years old who are involved. So I would say that goes right through the whole gamut. Anybody who has a real interest in politics would find, some stimulation here, I think, in terms of what I encountered and what they might encounter if they got involved.
Okay. So your target audience is more of anyone who thinks they'll find help or interest in the political aspect of it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. What does your family think about your writing?
I think they're very supportive. They write me, my siblings write me letters saying they enjoyed my previous works. And so I think, my relatives have all found it very interesting.
Well, that's good that you have a good support system going on there.
Oh, I do. Indeed, I do. And I have many friends also who support me as well, who are interested in politics or simply that we've done things in common, so they want to know what I'm doing and find this interesting.
Where can readers find out more about you and your book?
I think they can get it through Amazon.com, I believe, and that would be one way. And I know that Authors Press is doing some publicity as well, so that would be another way.
Speaking of Authors Press, how do you feel about working with Authors Press?
Oh, I've had a very nice relationship. A lady named Cindy Johnson calls me rather regularly. She's very intelligent and very cooperative and a great help.
I think that's all the questions I have for you today. I thought I had more, but I guess not.
Well, you asked some very good questions, and I appreciate it.
Do you have any questions that you want me to ask or anything you want to touch on?
No, I think we've really covered the ground on this, and you've done a wonderful job. I appreciate it.
I'm glad. I'm glad I could cover everything you wanted to cover.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today, Robert. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the honor to discuss your book with you.
Thank you. Likewise, talking to you was an honor. Thank you.
If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to Authors Press either through our number or via our email. But other than that, that's all I have for you today. It was such a pleasure to meet with you.
Likewise, a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Thank you. To you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.